Smile, be, chat, join for networking.
Afternoon. Danny Baker, the TV and radio presenter, has said the best decade for music was the 1970s. The reason being, there was the biggest explosion of different types of music. So you had prog, you had punk, new wave, rock, heavy metal, glam, singer-songwriters, reggae, ska and two-tone. So never before or since has that range of music appeared in one 10-year period. Now I'm fortunate, my formative years were the 70s. I went to my first gig at St George's Hall in Bradford to see the Dutch prog band Focus in January 1973. And I reckon I've seen probably about 150 bands over the ensuing 40 odd years. As part of Danny's comments, I was thinking about what are the most memorable gigs that I've been to. And in thinking that, there was actually, in the 10 most memorable gigs, there was actually a theme about how to do foresights, how to do presentations that came out of that. So I thought we'll share that with you today. It is a little bit interactive, so I'm going to talk about the bands. Let's see if you can identify them. It's quite a younger audience here, so we may be struggling for one or two, but we'll see how we go. So we start with number 10. I think the best band to come out of Ireland. John Peel's favourite band, and the recording, probably the finest 2.5 minutes of music that's ever gone. I still have my original single version of that. The thing that is memorable for me about that gig is there's 5 guys on stage absolutely loving what they were doing. And you know what? That enthusiasm is infectious. And that spread across to the whole of the audience. And that's my biggest takeaway from that gig. You know, if you're enthusiastic about your subject, let that come across, because that enthusiasm will come across to the audience and infect the audience. The next one's probably almost the opposite of that. There's only a couple of gigs I've been to where I've wondered whether I'm actually going to get out in one piece. So the first one of those was when I was at University in Newcastle. 77, we got the rise of punk, and at the forefront, in the vanguard of that, was probably one of the most aggressive in-your-face bands. I'll come to that one later, the other ones. It is. It is the Clash. Sold out gig. There was fighting on the door as we went in. There was fighting all the way through the concerts. There was a lot of adrenaline. There was a lot of fear. A lot of uncertainty. And actually, in a bizarre way, that actually heightened the atmosphere and made it more memorable. You know, when you are on your feet, you know, there is some concern, there is some adrenaline, there is some fear. Use that to improve the performance, not to kill it. Number 8, I think I might need Michael for this one. Does anybody reckon this? Picture disc.
Okay.
Bob Seger. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. Saw them in Newcastle, 77. They'd broken through in the States. They were playing in stadium gigs in the States. Comparatively unknown in the UK. Saw them at the City Hall in Newcastle. Holds about 2,000 people. Not a particularly good start, because when we rolled in, it was half full at best. However, we got the full arena show. You know, sax player standing up on the PA stack, 3 encores, absolutely awesome. And the takeaway from that is, irrespective of your audience, size, makeup, you give it absolutely 100%, because that's what makes it memorable, and the word of mouth spreads on. Number 7. So there's 2 main venues in Newcastle. There was the City Hall, where they started the gigs at 7:30 to 10:30, and there was the Mayfair, where they started the gigs 9:30 to 1. It was possible to see 2 bands in the same night. And I did that on a memorable evening where I started at the City Hall with these guys. These were 2 bands that were going to be the biggest in the world. Dire Straits. Followed that by the Mayfair, the Police. And one of the things that's memorable about that was really thinking about how the venue impacts. Very formal at the City Hall. You had everybody seated down. The band had to work really hard to get them on the feet. Whereas at the Mayfair it was much more relaxed. It was a little bit later in the evening, so there'd been a little bit more refreshment taken. That also had an impact. However, when you're doing a presentation, think about your venue does have an impact. We go to different places to do foresights. The room does have an impact. So think about how it's laid out, how it is, what's the best style for you. Number 6. I still have my programme from this one. If you saw enough bands, certainly in the 70s, you'd see a situation where the support act would blow the main act off stage. I will return to that one a little bit later. This one was something a bit more left field. This is the... So that's who we... Whoops. Whoa. So that's the... Recognise who we've got on there?
Yeah,
Elvis Costello. Played a great set, absolutely great set. Support band were good, but the big surprise on that was actually they had somebody on before the support act. There was a single microphone in the centre of the stage. This guy shambled on, dressed in black, black sunglasses, big rat's nest of a black hair piled up on top, carrying a paper bag, out of which he took a notebook, and he gave us 20 minutes of poetry. Does anybody recognise who that guy is?
John Cooper Clarke.
It is indeed John Cooper Clarke. And it was actually the sheer left field surprise of poetry at a rock gig that made it absolutely memorable. Absolutely memorable. So number 5. There are some great frontmen in rock. Mick Jagger, Freddie Mercury, Robert Plant. I haven't seen any of them. The guy that I think that I've seen live on stage that is the best. Possibly never heard of him. Alex Harvey, from the sensational Alex Harvey Band. You know, concerts would start often in the same way. You'd have drummer amble on, and then you'd have the bass player come on. You'd have the keyboards, guitarist, and then the last one on was the vocalist, because he's the star. Not at an Alex Harvey gig. So in a single spotlight, he would walk on stage, Canon McEwen's export in his hand, rip the ring pull off, pour it on his hands, put it through his hair, form it into a quiff, and then in a broad Glaswegian accent, which I will not attempt, he would say, "Good evening, boys and girls. Welcome to the show. Let me introduce you to my band, the sensational Alex Harvey Band," and he would bring them on. And in that 2 minutes, he would have the audience just there like that. And just to show on that particular evening how much in control he was of the audience, there's a little altercation broke out at the front of the stage. And mid-song, he turned round, stopped the band, and he said, "I will not have fighting at my gigs. You will shake hands, and we will not start again until you have done so." That's how much he was in control of what was happening in that room. Number 4. This band I had absolutely loved when I first got into music. We're into the area of prog here. I have my programme from the show. It's a band called Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I got into them as a 13-year-old. I had to wait probably till I was 16 to actually see them. Persuaded parents that we could go down to London to see them, 4 of us, see the gig, travel back overnight. Back in the day, there was only 2 ways to get tickets. You either turned up at the box office or you sent off a cheque with a stamped addressed envelope and you took potluck in terms of where your tickets were. We duly got our tickets. We went down to London, had a great day out with great friends. Turns out our tickets were 8 rows from the front, smack in front of Greg Lake. Brilliant seats, best seats I've ever had at a large gig. Now, I've been desperate to see this band for 2.5 years. Built it up in my mind. I wanted them to deliver. Now, fortunately for me, and what's memorable for me about that gig, is that they absolutely delivered. So, thinking about, we're standing up doing a foresight, we're talking about business strategy, we're talking about our accountancy, we are the number 1 motivational speaker in the UK. It's not about the billing, it's about living up to the billing and delivering on that. So that's what we have to do when we're on our feet. Okay. Number 3. I love this guy. I took this album out of the record library at university, played it, loved it from day one. My favourite track is my favourite album. My favourite track is a piano ballad on the end of side 1 called Racing in the Street. Has anybody here seen Springsteen live? Yeah, 30 odd numbers, 3 hours. You'll get different songs, different nights. The one I've picked is I saw him in Paris in 2005. Solo show, which is not my favourite way of seeing him, but the thing about it was, halfway through, he sat down at the piano and played Racing in the Streets. Of the 19 times I've seen him, that's the only time I've seen him play that live. So for that golden nugget in the middle of that show, that's what I pick up. And that's what we've got to do for the people that we're presenting to have a golden nugget within there. So number 2. I'll give you the exact date. 25th of December 1977. In a nightclub in Huddersfield done out like a interior of a medieval castle, I saw the most notorious band in the country at that time, which was the Sex Pistols. And my prized possessions is I still have my ticket from that show. And the other thing that's memorable, whatever you think of Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, when he's up on stage, you cannot take your eyes off him. So that's part of the thing that we need to be doing. That's why I use props today. That's part of my routine for making sure that I've got the room's attention. So how do we follow that in my favourite gig? So 1975, Midsummer Music at Wembley. 6 bands for £3.50. It started off with Stackridge, probably never heard of, Rufus with Chaka Khan, Joe Walsh before he joined the Eagles, and then at 6 o'clock on a sunny day, just as the sun's going down behind the stage, the Beach Boys walk on. Started off with Wouldn't It Be Nice, an hour and a half of their greatest hits, finished at 7:30, gauntlet thrown down, say follow that. Elton John was the headliner. He made the biggest mistake I've ever seen on stage. He decided to play the whole of his new album, 45 minutes of new music, to 75,000 people who'd just seen the Beach Boys do a greatest hits set. 70,000 in at the start of the set, 25,000 in at the end of the set. So, lessons for us all there. Like the undertones that our enjoyment come across, like the Clash, let's use the adrenaline to help the performance. Like Bob Seger, absolutely 100%. Like the Police and Dire Straits, the venue does have an impact. 6, let's have some surprise, like John Cooper Clarke. 5, Alex Harvey, grab hold of them, hang on to them. 4, like ELP, live up to your billing. 3, like Springsteen, have a golden nugget in there. 2, like the Sex Pistols, Johnny Rotten, be the centre of attention. And number 1, don't misunderstand your audience, unlike Elton John. So if I can give you a little golden nugget to take away, it's like most things in business, there's 4 R's. Doing a presentation. My golden nugget to you is, number 1, rehearse. Number 2, after you've done it, review. If you're not happy with it, revise. And every time you do it, repeat. As I say, all the rest of all the best gigs. Thank you, 4NTV. You've been a wonderful audience. I'll see you next time.